Hello, Martin here with your property market review for the end of October 2020. If you're watching at any other time, this may be well out of date, so check the latest information. But as it stands right now, at the end of October 2020, this is what's going on and my spin on the market. The views are mine, nobody else's. And so, yes, I'm also not qualified to give you financial advice. But I will advise you to go to an independent financial advisor and an independent mortgage broker, who are people who can offer you good independent financial advice and are covered by all the FSA, Financial Services Authority rules and regulations, and can therefore offer you proper advice as opposed to just stuff like, whatever you might hear from the man down the pub. But this is slightly better than that, I'd like to think. My spin on the property market. So here we are. And the rise in prices continues. There is a lot of buoyancy. Now, what you've got to remember is, of course, there is always a time lag. By the time you see the figures, things might have changed. And one thing for sure, we are in a rapidly changing market right now. But it would seem that the boost, the excitement, the rise in prices has continued. Figures out from Rightmove just recently. House price data for August shows that on average house prices have risen 0.7% since July, and the annual price rise has been 2.5%, which makes the average property in the UK valued at £239,196. And Rightmove's monthly snapshot of new listings showed sellers are asking for an average of £323,530, an increase of 5.5% more than this time last year. So all the indicators are that at the moment, and thanks, if that's what you want to call it, to the stamp duty holiday and pent-up demand and people wanting to move to bigger spaces, demand continues. But then there are other stories out there in the newspapers about house prices setting to fade away. You've got to remember that the newspapers are always looking for a story, right? And I think I've said before, years ago, there was the same data produced by the government produced a load of data, and the Daily Express and the Daily Mail on the same day analysed that data and came up with completely different headlines. One said house prices set to boom, the other one said house price rises over. So you have kind of use your nous and not believe all that you read. But according to this report, the housing market is starting to run out of steam after months of robust growth over the summer. The most recent economic data suggests. See, we've got one set of data from Rightmove saying it's all looking pretty good, and this other set of data is coming from where? This is Google search data suggests that interest in key phrases such as Rightmove, Zoopla or On the Market slowed in September. An analysis by Pantheon Macroeconomics shows that visits to the three main property websites trended down this month and are currently 7% below the peak of August. Or August the 23rd, apparently, was the peak when everyone was looking. Goodness knows why. So this is data from Rightmove, which was for August, and then we've got some more up-to-date stuff saying what is going on, and they are saying that online data suggests the initial wave of demand for bigger homes caused by COVID is now fading. Recent gains in house prices will not be sustained. Well, you know what? You can't take snapshots of the property market. You need to look at it more medium to long term and not sweat the daily analysis that goes on, or even the monthly analysis that goes on. Unless you're in the market to buy or sell, it really isn't hyper important. Like any investment, you only capitalize a gain or a loss when you sell. So if you're not in the market for that, then don't worry about it, okay? If you are in the market, then if you're buying, then obviously at the moment there's a lot of positivity, but if I was buying right now, I'd be holding up this price bit of information saying that it's looking like it's all going to get a bit dodgy, so I'm going to negotiate a better price. And if I was looking to sell, I'd be holding up this piece of information, which is Rightmove's data, saying that it's all looking pretty rosy. It's all about how you spin it, okay? And in general, you've got to come back to the basics about property, which is that We don't have enough in this country. There aren't enough places for people to live. So as a commodity, we've got an asset which people need, a thing which people need. Most of us strive to have a roof over our heads and hopefully get that either by renting or by owning. And there aren't enough houses in the UK. They're supposed to be building so many more new ones, and the numbers never ever reach the number required. So as a basic commodity, houses still are in demand, and that's why I'm a great believer in properties for the long term. Ups and downs, ins and outs, rises and falls. In the long term, property, I believe, will always make a solid investment. But that is where we are at the moment. It's still, looking back at data that was produced, in the latter parts of the summer, everything pretty rosy. Still, the whole thing with the stamp duty holiday, coupled with pent-up demand, really fueling that market. And yet other reports saying as we enter October, things starting to slow down a little bit, as you might expect. Now, there's always a traditional window of activity, October, November. People want to try and get things sorted out before Christmas. So basically at the end of October now, we're nearing the point where you won't be done by Christmas, okay? It's going to take you at least 6 weeks. And with the current situation, especially if you're looking for a mortgage, where the average mortgage application, I think I read a figure that it would have normally previously taken 90 days. They're now looking more at 120 days. So an extra month at least to get mortgages and things sorted. It's just a case of processing. It's people working from home. It's people... businesses restructuring or whatever it might be. So everything is taking a lot longer. So that's 3 months, and the stamp duty window, so certainly Christmas, is pretty much getting very tight now if you're looking to buy and be in before Christmas. In terms of the stamp duty holiday even, which ends of course on the 31st of March, unless it's extended, which of course stamp duty holiday, remember that's where for your first property, if it's the only property you own, there's no stamp duty to pay up to £500,000. If you've already got property, then you still have to pay the 3% up to that 5%, 500,000, and then additional amounts of money on top of that. That ends the 31st of March, and they're talking about now, you need to get your act together pretty quick, and they're worried that some people might miss the deadline unless you actually get involved in that now. So if you are looking at spending a reasonable amount of money on a property, it might be worth considering getting a move on and at least getting that ball rolling. And one of the things that you as a seller can do in those circumstances is actually try and get things sorted out for your potential buyer. One of the big delaying factors in any purchase is getting searches done. And they are basically, your solicitor will apply to, it's the buyer's solicitor normally will apply to the local council for local authority searches. That's things like roads being built, and lots of other things that searches look for. Well, you could be proactive as a seller and actually get your solicitor to get those searches done. Now, you're taking a bit of a gamble because searches have a time limit on them. I can't remember what it is. It might be 3 months, 6 months. And you will have to pay for them. But if it speeds up that, but it's not very much. I mean, they're relatively small amounts of money, hundreds of pounds as opposed to thousands of pounds. But if it speeds up the whole process and would enable somebody to, meet those deadlines, be it Christmas or meeting that 31st of March stamp duty holiday deadline, then that's a sort of proactive move that you could make. So that's just a bit of a tip if you're looking to sell right now. If you want to move things along, do that. And don't forget, on this YouTube channel, there are lots of bits of advice for you, especially I've done a video all about advice for you if you're looking to sell your property, to top 10 tips for making their property really attractive. It's in the property tips, top tips playlist section. And there's also another one in there about whether or not you need an estate agent, and there's pros and cons for using an estate agent, and I list all those in that video there. So check that out for sure. Just a couple of other things in this review, and my analysis on that in terms of where property prices are going to go, because I actually just waffled along a bit there. I am confident long-term property prices will be fine. Medium-term, long-term property prices will be fine. Short-term, I think we're all watching the world economy. We're all watching people's jobs. We're all watching, how we, get on with the continuing situation regarding this terrible COVID-y thing, and how that affects people's financial situation in general. The property market, will without a doubt be sensitive to that. And once the incentives for the stamp duty holiday come to an end, what's going to happen then? Well, I come back to what I said before. Long term, medium term, you're going to be fine. There might be some ups and downs along the way, but try and just not get too wound up by it. Try not to worry about it, and just have belief that medium to long term, it's all going to be fine. And as always in any market conditions, if you know what you're doing, there are opportunities to be had. That's one of the things we talk about in my property trainings. Making money from property is the courses, and we talk about how you can make money in market conditions when the market's going up, and also when the market's going down. There's opportunities at all points. So there's a couple of extra things just to flag up. There's an interesting article I was reading about the first-time buyer repayment trap, as they call it. Just something to be aware of. This is just more of a cautionary tale. Help to Buy, introduced in 2013. I can't believe it was that long ago. But yeah, if you remember, it was a loan scheme. It was introduced by the government to help first-time buyers who were buying buying new property, basically, and they had to have a 5% deposit, and then they got a loan, a discounted loan from the government, which were interest-free for 5 years. And up to a certain amount, it's 20% outside London and 40% within London. And it just enabled people to raise that deposit and get effectively a 75% loan to value mortgage, because they were borrowing part of the deposit but as a loan. But as those deals are coming to an end, and people looking to refinance, they're finding that the banks are now looking at the fact that this was a loan to make up that 75%, and that has to be repaid. So when it comes to affordability criteria, the chance of negotiating a better deal. Now, you're not in danger of losing the existing loan that you have, but of course you're going to have to start paying interest on the loan you got from the government. So if you're looking to refinance, the inevitable thing, one of the inevitable possibilities is that you will end up increasing the size of your mortgage, which obviously has to be affordable. And your affordability in terms of taking out that mortgage will also have this government loan taken into it. So you might find, especially as banks and building societies and traditional lenders are tightening their criteria, as a result of everything that's gone on, you might find it difficult. And I think not to panic again if you're in that situation. I don't think that your loan is going to be, your main mortgage is obviously secure. You're going to have to factor in the fact you're going to have to start paying interest on the loan you took with the government, and you might not be able to get the best deal that's out there. But I mean, if you're not going to, unless you can't afford those things, it's not a serious situation, because you might not be able to afford those situations. And just a sideline, if you ever get into difficulties, the first thing to do is start talking to people early on. Don't just sit there and worry about it and not do anything about it. You've got to get help straight away. Talk to people. They will help you deal with whatever situation you are in. But as a cautionary tale, a lot of deals, look very appealing at first glance. And it's really important to think to the future. And, in the excitement of trying to get something away, you might not bother to look at the small print or think about, 6 years, down the line, I'm going to have to start paying interest on this loan. And, if it was the only option you had at the time, you've done it and you're going to deal with it, and that's absolutely fine. But if you can think through to the future, and sometimes 6 years feels like a long time away, what will be the situation then? How will I be able to cope with that? And what can I put in place to make that situation as easy as possible. It might be extra savings, it might be putting, you know, part of your salary away, or whatever it might be, just to protect yourself in those circumstances. So you've got a bit of a pot, or just think it through and talk to people about, you know, the affordability and how that's all going to work for you, and don't overstretch stretch yourself financially. Interesting, just to finish off with this article I picked up about house prices. Again, going back to this fastest rising growth, not surprisingly, some of the places that people are looking going up, they're comparing September 2020 versus September 2019, and lots of places that people might want to move out to get that green space, more like a nicer environment perhaps, to live through lockdown, if that's what you're going to call it. The top 5 in this list: Chipping Norton, Oxfordshire, up 156% compared to the same time last year. Yarn in North Yorkshire up 163%. Buckhurst Hill in Essex up 164%. St Ives in Cornwall up 170%. And number 1 in the list of increases in sales agreed September 2020 versus September 2019 is Dartmouth in Devon. So that beautiful seaside town attracting people who want to, I can imagine, escape for it all. So that's a bit of an overview. October 2020, as I said, if you're listening, viewing, watching at any other time, this might be out of date. So check out the latest details. There might be a more updated property market review. But for now, I hope you like this video. Subscribe to the channel if you do. Look out on this YouTube channel, Martin Roberts Property Tidbits, for more advice from the world of property. And yeah, whatever you're up to, I wish you well.